What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another Bros Talking Soccer podcast. Today is Tuesday, June 26th, and we are recapping day 13 of the World Cup. My name is Dave Knittel. My brother Matt is on a plane to Houston right now, and my other brother Christian is working like a normal adult. So it's just going to be me on the podcast again. Christian may be joining us as we go through here. And I promise we have guests lined up for tomorrow and Thursday. So it's not just going to be me talking for the rest of this week. Matt's going to be out doing things. So I don't think we'll have him on again until next week. And Christian will hopefully be on as we go here, but he'll definitely be on the weekends. Again, he has a normal job. And so, sucks to be him. But I'm enjoying things, loving the World Cup. If you are watching live on YouTube, hello, welcome. Please interact with me as I go through this, and I'm not just a maniac just yammering to himself. I always appreciate interacting with other people. If you have thoughts on the matches or if I say something stupid or incorrect, please interact with me. Let me know. I'd be happy to respond. If you're listening to the podcast, thank you very much for listening, but we also record this thing live on YouTube, so feel free to come interact with me as I do this. I'm recording about 15 minutes or so after the last match ends each day of the World Cup. No more stalling. Let's get to the World Cup action from today. So the morning matches were Group C final stage matches. We had Australia versus Peru and Denmark versus France. Let's talk about Australia versus Peru first. That finished 2-0 to Peru. This was the game I was only partially watching. I was a little bit more interested in Denmark versus France. So as I go through this, I'm only one human. I try my best to watch both matches, but that's not the best way to watch a soccer match. So there might be things I missed or some of the things that I might note here. Again, you may feel differently, and I would love to hear that because I'm not, infallible as much as I would love to be. Peru, again, won this match. 10th minute, Jednak, he kicked Cuevas right in the face. And we saw this with Mane. So Jednak is the Australia captain. So I know I just jumped into things. So the Australia versus Peru match in the 10th minute was the first kind of major incident and talking point from this match. Mili Jednak, who's the Australia captain, had a bouncing ball in the middle of the field, and he lifted his foot up and he caught Cuevas, the Peru attacking center midfielder, in the chest/face area. And we saw this with Mane on Ederson. I mean, it wasn't quite as bad as that, but luckily Cuevas was okay and there wasn't a huge issue, but I really thought that could have been a red. It was incredibly dangerous play by him. And, it's fortunate everybody was okay from that incident, mainly Cuevas, but I thought Jednak was lucky to get away with, I believe, just a yellow in that instance. Australia was coming out and was being more aggressive. I mean, you can understand that considering they needed a result from the match, but again, from the way they had played previously, they were so defensive against France and sitting back. And I thought maybe they might take a similar approach where they, maybe try to absorb pressure and counter, but they definitely were coming out and pressing higher. 18th minute, Peru got the goal. That was when Carrillo hit that full volley. It was a fantastic play over the top. I don't know who hit the ball over the top. It may have been Yotun or Cuevas. I don't know who played it over the top, so apologies for that. But Guerrero had a fantastic run, center forward, collected the ball. I know there was a hint of offside, and I know somebody who I was interacting with on Twitter said it was definitely offside. I mean, from the camera angle and the fact that it was so tight, I was fine with letting them play that out. So for me, it wasn't offside, but Guerrero does a ton of great work to body off the Australian defender, hold the ball up, sort of work a little bit of space for himself, let his teammates get into position, and then just floats an absolutely perfect ball over the top for Carrillo to hit. First time volley into the lower corner. I thought it was a fantastic goal from Peru. And again, Guerrero didn't start their first match. I think he was lacking a little bit of match fitness and, what could have been if he played the full 90 for them, because I thought he played very well. Australia was looking, again, surprisingly good and creative in the attack. A little bit different than I expected. I expected them to maybe sit back a bit more, but again, they came out and really were flowing. And so, again, that was unexpected. 50th minute, it was 2-0. Guerrero got his goal. It was a fortunate deflection in that the cross by Cuevas, or pass really, it was a pass by Cuevas and got deflected by the Australian player, but Guerrero reacted quickest to it and, turned and hit a first-time volley with his left foot. Again, just great poacher finish goal and, what could have been if he played the full 90 in their first match. So just a great goal by him. Tim Cahill came on for Australia in the 53rd. Just wanted to note that, as it's his 4th World Cup. Just wanted to give him props there. Didn't really have much else from this match. Again, I was only partially watching, but Peru, I thought, played fantastic throughout the tournament, and it was good to see them get a couple goals, get a win, and so happy for them and their fans after not being in the World Cup for 36 years. Now let's talk about the Denmark versus France game. It was pretty much a snoozer. I mean, both teams made major changes to their lineups. I think France had 6 changes to their lineup from the previous match, and Denmark had definitely a handful. Some of them were enforced by suspension. I know Poulsen was suspended, and a couple other players have been injured. Kvist has, would he break some ribs and punctured a lung, and he's still hoping to be back. Delaney was a warrior for Denmark throughout this match. I just wanted to note that real quick. Let's talk about some of the talking points from this match. In the 4th minute, there was contact from the French players, but for me, this wasn't a penalty for Denmark. Unfortunately, when I do these things by myself, I may not remember what the heck I'm writing about, so I don't actually remember what happened on this play. I wish somebody else was on this podcast with me, or if you're on YouTube and maybe remember what happened in the 4th minute of the Denmark game, let me know. But for me, it wasn't a penalty, apparently. There was a little bit of contact, but not enough for a penalty to be given. Denmark was pretty aggressive to start, with them only needing a draw from this match. I thought that they, again, came out and were a little bit more aggressive than I would have expected. France, at least when the ball was in the French, that's how Denmark was initially. And then what happened is they started to pull back more and more and become more and more defensive. And when France was in the attacking third, all of Denmark's players were in a 20-yard area, including their center forward, and that meant France's players and attackers, including their center backs, were all within that space. And so it just became this really condensed, tight space within these 20 yards in, maybe 45 yards from goal in Denmark's defensive third. And again, nothing really amounted to it. Again, with all the changes, there was a little bit of sloppiness, lacking match sharpness because the players aren't playing together, and nothing ultimately came out of it. 29th minute, there was an amazing cross by Cornelius, the center forward for Denmark, to Eriksen. The keeper, Miranda, I believe, is the keeper for France, came out and made a great play. I know there was a little bit of speculation on if this could have been a penalty or not. For me, I thought it was a great play all around. Fantastic ball from Cornelius. Good of Eriksen to get there, but I thought the defenders made a good play on it as well. I think Hernandez, the left back for France, got back and made a good play as well. So again, good with the no call there. Great play all around from both attacking and defending. Already noted the attacking third, everybody was condensed into that space. Now, Dembele and Lamar were switching flanks a little bit, more in the second half. Again, didn't really amount to anything, but that was a little tactical wrinkle that France was trying to implement. And again, there wasn't much to report from this match. I thought Nzonzi played fairly well. I like his game, and so it was good to get him some minutes, get Pogba some rest. I can't remember if he was on a yellow card suspension, if that's why he's rested, or if they were just giving him some time off. Again, you could really tell that this match was a result of many teams making changes, both teams making many changes, excuse me, that's what I should say. Finally, last point I have from this match, in the 84th minute, there was a little bit of a tangle between Giroud and Kjær, the Denmark center back and captain. Again, no penalty for me. Pretty boring game overall, not a ton of really interesting chances. And again, 0-0 was probably the result that both were happy with, and they go through 1 and 2 from the group. So final Group C standings: France came in first with 7 points, Denmark came in second with 5 points, Peru third with 3 points, and Australia down there in fourth with 1 point. Now let's talk about the drama, and that was Group D final matches. A lot of intensity, a lot of drama, you sweating it out right till the very end. And so, again, that's what you want to see from the World Cup. Let's talk about Iceland versus Croatia first, because the Nigeria versus Argentina game was a little bit more dramatic and had a little bit more implications. So Iceland versus Croatia, that finished 2-1 to Croatia. Lots of lineup changes for Croatia. I mean, they're already through, and so you can understand those lineup changes. This was the game I was only partially paying attention to, and with everything that was going on in the Nigeria versus Argentina game, I am certain I missed some things from this match. Now, the first note that I have from this match was the Croatia elbow on Bjornsson. I thought it was an unfortunate sort of just natural collision that happens in soccer. Obviously, it looked really bad, and Bjornsson's nose was gushing blood for a long time. There wasn't any sort of red card or maliciousness in it for me. It was just that sort of collision when you're being brought down and you're kind of going down awkwardly. The Croatian player, who I didn't write down his name, but again, he's just flailing his arms and it's just an unfortunate collision. I think it probably was a foul on Bjornsson too, because he was kind of all over the Croatian player. Looked to be Iceland were pressing a little bit higher, again, expected, given that they needed a result in this match. With me only partially watching, I thought Jedvaj, the outside back for Croatia, and Modric look very similar and wore similar numbers. So with me only partially watching, I didn't love that Croatia did that because it was tough for me to know who was who, especially when the match or the camera angle was zoomed out. Again, that was most of my notes from this particular match. Iceland had a chance late in the half for Gunnarsson. That was the 47th minute in the first half, so 2 minutes of stoppage time. He had a great ball. I think he hit it with his right foot. This was when the Icelandic player was driving towards the end line. He cut it back to kind of the top of the 18, but over on the corner, and Gunnarsson hit a good shot. Good save by the Croatian keeper. Not much else to report from that match. They also almost scored. Iceland almost scored in the 40th minute, and they just barely missed by Finn Bogason, who was the center striker. This was when the ball was cut back or may have just popped out to him. I can't remember exactly, but he just barely missed the near post by, I want to say, less than a yard. It was only a foot or two. Curler with his right foot. Again, if Iceland could have gotten a goal there, maybe the result is a little bit different. Then the Croatia goal comes off of a deflected cross and then a late run by Baldej, who, you know, hit a blast. And that was a great run from him and a great goal for Croatia, not Costa Rica, for Croatia. That came in at 53rd minute. Iceland had a little bit more success than they had in the past throughout this match on their long throws and corners. They've been, they haven't been too successful this tournament, especially on the long throw-ins, and it looked like they were causing some problems for Croatia. Eventually, Iceland did earn a penalty that came after a cross by a player into Lovren's arm. I know Lovren was kind of complaining, but his arms were outstretched. It hit off his arm. I don't know if there's anything he can really be too upset about. It was a no doubt handball for me. Gylfi Sigurdsson stepped up and was just so ballsy. After missing the penalty in the previous match, he stepped up there, blasted his penalty right down the middle, but in the roof of the net. It was very close to being blasted over yet again, but he made it 1-1. And if Iceland could have come out with a victory here, given the result in the other match, they actually could have gone on and advanced from this group. So they fought right to the very end. You would expect nothing less from that team because with the Viking blood in them and the commitment to, fighting till the end, they definitely showed that. So they had a fantastic tournament. Unfortunately, Perisic unfortunately for Iceland's perspective, I'm sure Croatian fans were very happy with this, but Perisic, the number 4 winger for Croatia, I don't remember if he started this match or if he came on as a late sub, but he got the goal in the 90th minute. Iceland had a bad turnover. I don't know if it was miscommunication, if it was just tired legs or whatnot, but they turned it over right in their own half. The Croatian players played one quick slip pass to Perisic. He took, I don't even know if he took a touch. He may have taken one touch or no touches and just let the ball roll across his body. Fantastic finish with his left foot into the upper 90 far post. So again, great play by him. Croatia gets out of this group in first place, 9 points. So I'm just pulling up the lineup here. Perisic was in the entire game. So good on him to still be kicking it in the 90th minute. Croatia just looks very good. I'm excited for them and their potential as they move forward in this tournament. Finally, the last match of the day, the drama-filled one. Is Messi going to do it? Can Nigeria pull through with this young team? And the result ended up being 2-1 to Argentina. They got the result in the end of the day, but they certainly made it nervy for their fans and all of the players and for anyone who's a Messi fan. So a couple of things that were interesting from the Argentina lineup. They picked Higuain over Aguero. I personally rate Aguero better, but they went with a different look there. It was good to see Ever Banega in the lineup over. I'm not sure who he came in for off the top of my head, but again, it was just good to see him in there. I like his game in center midfield, and I like that they went back to a 4-3-3 formation. That 3-4-3 that they were trying in the previous match clearly did not work, but again, before the match, I thought that it was good to go back to a 4-3-3, although Messi played very interestingly throughout the match, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Last big call was dropping Caballero, the goalkeeper who made the really poor mistake last match, and They decided to bring in Avila, who was, I believe they said, a 32-year-old, never had an Argentina cap before. This was his debut. He had a pretty good match, but again, that's just a ballsy call to make in a tournament this size, in the pressure of the last group stage match. You need a result. To make that call was again ballsy, and it ultimately ended up working out. But again, it's pretty crazy. Argentina fans throughout the match, they just had an incredible atmosphere, and the Nigeria fans, when they started to get going, was they sounded great too. And so overall, this game just had a fantastic atmosphere. It felt like it wasn't at a neutral venue. It felt like it was in Argentina, and Nigeria fans were coming and rivals. It just sounded incredible. Wish I could have been there. Argentina in the beginning had a couple of really nervy passes. They were either overhit or hit out of bounds. They just looked nervous. Messi had a bit more freedom in this lineup, but with regards to moving along the front lineup or along the front line, but again, he kept getting dragged inside. He wasn't giving any width to the lineup, and initially Argentina was doing a good job, especially with their fullbacks, creating width. But as the game sort of went on, that width went away, and Messi coming into the middle, it just got so clogged in there. And so again, I think he should have stayed a bit more wide, or Argentina should have made some sort of lineup switch to create more space. So that was something I noted. Mascherano, he was an absolute warrior out there today, especially on the defensive end, but he had some terrible, terrible giveaways. Particularly, he had 4 within the first 13 minutes that I noted that could have led to that did lead to Nigeria scoring chances. And again, he was giving away possession needlessly for someone in their 4th World Cup. I think he's 34, 35 years old, played at the highest level. You would have expected more from him. And again, he fought it out. He was a battler. He was a warrior, but he had some interesting passes and touches in midfield throughout this match. Then the goal came for Argentina in the 15th minute. Messi finally gets his goal. Electric atmosphere after they scored it. Banega, fantastic ball over the top. Messi playing along the back line, and it's that goal is so nice of Messi to take it down off of his left foot in full speed. Off his left thigh. He's at full sprint to take it off his left thigh, control it, cushion it down perfectly into his left foot to be able to take a touch. Again, everything at full pace, and take a perfect touch out, keep him running full stride, and then finish with his weaker right foot into the far post. That goal is so, so good. And so many people and professionals can't execute that. Like so few people in the world can execute that at high speed. You even saw it with the defender. After Messi took the touch off his thigh, most players would assume that the person's going to maybe take a poor touch or maybe let the ball hit the ground and cut it back or whatnot. Messi just kept going, and then the Nigeria defender slowed down. You saw him slow down just a minute, because as soon as he saw it hit his thigh, just mentally he shut off. He's just like, okay, well, there's no way he's going to touch this. Keep running in full stride. He's just naturally going to get it caught. No, it's Messi. He's, for my mind, the greatest player in the world. And it was just a fantastic goal from him. Happy to see him. You could see the relief on his face during his celebration. And yeah, so just fantastic goal from Messi. As I noted earlier and was touching on this, Messi, especially when Argentina had the ball in their half or deep in the midfield, he was just dropping so far off the front line. And he also wasn't really giving an outlet to his defenders and midfielders in possession when they were in their own half. It seemed like offensively, he only wanted to play when the ball was in the offensive half of the field. And I get that. I get that he's earned that or whatnot, but you could see the Argentina players just not having an outlet when the ball would be over on his side, and he was just standing in midfield with the Nigeria defenders around him, and the Argentina players had nowhere to go. He needed to, at the very least, open up, at least get to the end line, or have somebody get to the end line and get a little bit more movement, because again, he was being pretty static in the midfield and not providing an outlet to his defenders. So that was something kind of that was happening throughout the match. And, I would have liked to have seen an adjustment on that front. The Nigeria formation, it worked so well in their previous match against Iceland, but it did not work, at least in the first half of this match, because Argentina was getting those fullbacks forward and spreading out the field. Nigeria was trying to clog up the middle, and they were succeeding at that, but there was still tons of space on the outside. And then as the Nigeria players were going to condense that space, Argentina then had some openings in the midfield. And so, again, I didn't think that formation was the best. There were a couple of opportunities that Argentina didn't seize where there was the left winger. So Di Maria was on Victor Moses. And then I want to call him Talarico, but I played with a kid named Talarico. So I know that that's not the guy's name. I think it's Talafico. Tara. Come on. I'm getting the lineup here. Bear with me 1 second, people. Sorry about this. Tagliafico, the outside back, made a couple of runs where they could have overloaded on Victor Moses, who isn't the best defender, and they just didn't seize that opportunity. It felt like they were trying to go down the right side and get it to Messi, but that was on a little bit more for Argentina. They didn't exploit it as much as they could have. 32nd minute, the break. Nigeria played a quick free kick, and Argentina countered very quickly. I don't know who played the ball in behind. It may have been Mascherano, may have been Banega, but Di Maria was off on his horse in on a breakaway. And Omarojo was the guy, the Argentinian player who came in and took out Di Maria. Now, there was some speculation on if this should have been a red card or yellow card. For me, I agree with the yellow card that was given, the free kick outside the box. There was another Nigerian defender who was also there. I didn't think it was denial of an obvious goal-scoring opportunity. It was potentially a goal-scoring opportunity, but again, I was happy with the yellow. On the resulting free kick, huge save by Uzoho, the 19-year-old Nigerian keeper. Messi hits just an absolutely, I mean, you wouldn't expect anything less, inch-perfect free kick to the goalkeeper's side, and the goalkeeper gets the slightest deflection to tip it onto the post. I think if he doesn't get that deflection, it's inside the post and in the net or just tucked inside the post. So again, fantastic play by that young man. Argentina dominated throughout the first half, but then Nigeria went into the half and made some changes. I want to briefly touch on the Rojo dangerous play. I think this came in the first half. Again, I didn't write down the exact minute in my notes, but there was a cross into the box, and Iheanacho was in position. So he was in a good position. He had Marcos Rojo on his back, and the ball was coming in, and Rojo decided that the best way for him to win the ball was to jump up and kick it probably 6 feet in the air. And when he kicked it, he was by Iheanacho's head, and Rojo won the ball. But when you kick that high, this all occurred right around the 6-yard box in Argentina's penalty box. And so the referee let play go. But for me, that's at the very least an indirect free kick. And the fact that Rojo made contact with Iheanacho, which the replays clearly showed, I thought that this could have been a penalty kick. And so it was interesting that this wasn't a huge talking point. It kind of just moved on because, again, I thought that was so risky. And I was having a little bit of an argument, or at least just talking with some people on Twitter about how I don't have a ton of faith in the Argentinian defenders. Yes, they're fine, but I don't think they're great. And you saw that in a couple instances. This is one where Rojo made a really risky play that I think should have resulted in a penalty, and we'll talk about Otamendi in a little bit. I mean, Rojo obviously redeemed himself, which we'll get to, and Otamendi, which we'll talk about in a little, made just an overly aggressive play later on. And again, I just think they're sometimes too aggressive. And from a center back, that's not necessarily what you want, especially if both of them are playing together. Maybe you have one center back who's aggressive and another one who's a little bit more, technical and tactical, can read the game a little bit better. It felt like both of these guys are just balls to the wall. Let's go. And that results in Argentina getting into trouble in sometimes. Mascherano gets called for the penalty on, I don't know if it was on Balogun or Ekong. I couldn't tell if it was number 5 or number 6. But it was a soft penalty, but Mascherano, he can't put his arms around the guy. I mean, there's clearly been an emphasis from FIFA, especially after the Harry Kane incidents earlier in this tournament, to evaluate and to look at when players are being grabbed and grappled with in the box, especially on corners. And yes, the guy went down easy, but Mascherano's got his arms around him, and you give somebody an opportunity to go down when you put your arms around them. So again, it's tough to reverse that penalty call if the referee's going to call it, and he called it. And again, Moses stepped up, slotted it home very coolly. It wasn't a very good penalty, but it resulted in a goal, and tie. 1-1 tied match. So then from then on, Argentina was just, I mean, they were kind of static in the first half too, but they at least had some more numbers coming forward, but they just seemed so static. There was no movement along the forward line. Again, we already talked about Messi. He was good in moments, but again, a lot of times he just gets so static in his positioning, and the forwards I don't know if they don't know where to run or whatnot, but the runs are just straight line. There's no like check in, check out, make sure the Nigeria defenders are on their toes. It's kind of everybody standing and walking around, and then maybe one or two guys just running in a straight line. And that's not a good recipe for success. Argentina just couldn't clear men on the front post on corners. I'm tearing my hair out sitting on the couch watching this. You see this all the time from professionals, and I get that you want to drive the ball into the box and you want to hit it with pace, but I don't know if it's a designed play. If it's a designed play, you need to get someone on the front post or in front of the first defender for the opposition. But this happens so often, and it happened like 4 or 5 times when they're tied at 1, and you're not giving your defender or your attackers an opportunity to attack the ball. You have to clear the first man on corners. The VAR decision that I think this is the first VAR decision that didn't result in a call being reversed. But in the 76th minute, Marcus Rojo jumped up, headed the ball into his own hand, which was outstretched. He was awkward on the play. The ball was up in the air. He had time to adjust himself and try to get into a good position. Yes, the Nigeria attacker was there pressuring him, but again, he didn't get his positioning correctly, and so when he jumped up to head the ball, he wasn't set, and he didn't get the right header on it, so he ended up heading it down into his own outstretched arm. Now, we saw this in the match yesterday. I know we saw this with Yusuf Poulsen in Denmark. I can't remember who it was called on yesterday. I think it was in the Portugal match. Yes, it was Cedric in the Portugal match. The referees have been calling that when the defender has their arms outstretched and it isn't in a natural position, they've been calling that a penalty. So as much as I don't like it, and I agree that it probably shouldn't be a penalty, we're lacking consistency in what is called a handball and whatnot in this instance. It would have been, I think, harsh, but again, by the way it's being called, this was a little bit confusing why this wasn't called a penalty. So for me, I don't know. Again, I don't. It's tough. It's tough because at my core, I believe this shouldn't have been a penalty. But again, based on the way that they've been calling the matches, it likely should have resulted in a penalty. I thought that Sampaoli waited way too long to bring on Aguero. What was there? 15, maybe 18 minutes left in the match when he finally came on. They needed a goal. I thought that they needed to be more aggressive earlier on and get him on. They eventually brought him on. And to be perfectly honest, I don't know if he really touched the ball, but again, I thought that they needed something else different, and ultimately the two defenders combined to get their goal. But I thought it was just interesting that he waited so long. 80th minute, there was that low cross into Higuain, who blasted it over the target. We've seen this from Gonzalo Higuain in the last few finals, and him missing kind of big chances for Argentina. We've seen Higuain miss big chances in recent tournaments, and this happened yet again. Late in the match, at this level, at the World Cup, your center striker for Argentina, you need to get the shot on target, and at the very least, you need to keep the shot down to force a goalkeeper to make a save or a defender to make a deflection. You cannot blast that ball over the top of the net at this level, and he did. Luckily, it didn't amount to anything, or it didn't screw over Argentina. I want to highlight the Mascherano. I don't know what happened to his head, but he was bleeding openly for, I don't know, the last at least 20 minutes of the match. I don't know if he got a cut here and if it was just blood dripping down, if it was dried blood. I don't know what happened and or why he was allowed to just keep playing with the blood. I mean, most of the time we see FIFA referees say, hey, well, because it's in the rules, hey, you need to go get that taken care of. You can't have open blood sort of out there on your jersey or anything like that. I don't know why he was allowed to continue. So that was an interesting thing to note. Wanted to bring that up as well. Armani had a huge save in the 83rd minute on Higalo. This was after I alluded to this earlier. Otamendi just rushes in and tries to make a hero slide tackle in a situation where he didn't need to. And Igalo just beats him very easily, drives to the end line drives towards the end line, corner of the net. And Armani, the goalkeeper for Argentina, came out, just stayed big, made a big save. And, that ultimately led to Argentina going the other way. And eventually, I mean, they didn't drive up right after that, but it kept the game at 1-1. And then a couple minutes later, Argentina gets the goal. 86th minute, Mercado is driving up the wing as an outside back, serves in the cross into the center of the box. I can't remember if it was Higuain or Aguero. One of them made a good run. I don't know where the other one was, but one of them made a good run to occupy the first center back at the near post. And that resulted in the middle of the 18-yard box, right around the penalty spot, being wide open. No idea why Marcus Rojo was there, the center back, but luckily he was there. Struck a fabulous first-time volley with his right foot, which is his weaker foot, into the lower 90. Fantastic goal from them. Fantastic play from Rojo. And, you just saw that emotion come out from Rojo, from Messi, from all the fans. And again, it's fantastic to have Argentina in this tournament, and the group ended up exactly like I predicted: Croatia first and Argentina second, but we definitely took a circuitous route to that ending. Now, before we get to previewing tomorrow's matches, I want to give a plug for StadiumScene.tv. They are a partner of ours. They are a travel blog for sports fans in the United States. So if you're going to a match, any match of any sport, so you want to go check out StadiumScene.tv, you can check out user reviews of what to do before the match, where to park, good things to check out at the stadium and all of that. So you want to go to StadiumScene.tv to check that out. Additionally, they partner with content creators like us at Bros Talking Soccer. They have the Lads podcast, Game Day Tourist. There are some of the guys that we've had on this podcast. And then there's so many others. They have a NASCAR partner. They have basketball partners and so on and so forth. So if you're a fan of any sport, really, you want to go to StadiumScene.tv to check out all of the different great content that they offer, including ours. So you can go there and check out ours as well. Now let's talk about tomorrow's matches. We got Mexico versus Sweden kicking things off, along with South Korea and Germany. That is Group E. And then the later matches are Switzerland versus Costa Rica and Serbia versus Brazil. Mexico versus Sweden. This is going to be a battle. So Group E is a cluster. If Sweden wins this game, and likely if they win it, I want to say if it's even by one goal, but if they win it by multiple goals and Germany wins their match, Mexico could be out. And so I think it's just going to be really super interesting, because Mexico has seemed to sit back. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say they've sat back in both matches, but they really took it to South Korea. But Mexico has, when they open things up, let me put it this way. When they open things up against South Korea, they opened themselves up to chances. South Korea got chances. They just didn't finish well outside of Son's, fabulous strike from outside the box. And so if Sweden plays a little bit more defensive and Mexico come on to them, and Sweden is able to counter and get opportunities, they have a chance. Now, Sweden isn't the greatest at scoring goals, and the fact that they need to come out and win this match is likely going to favor Mexico. So I think it's going to be very, very tight here, but I think Mexico does get a result. I think it's going to be a draw. I think it's going to be like a 1-1, highly intense affair, but I think it's going to be tight either way. Slight edge to Mexico, because Mexico only needs a draw. If this was like either of them had to win, I'd give the slight edge to Mexico. But the fact that Mexico only needs a draw, I think it's going to end up 1-1. South Korea versus Germany. Germany, after getting that massive 95th minute goal, or 96th, I can't remember exactly when it was, from Toni Kroos to win against Sweden, I expect them to continue with that momentum. South Korea is already eliminated. Again, I haven't been overly impressed with too much of what South Korea has offered. I think that they are okay on the counter, but they just don't have anyone that can finish outside of Son. And if Germany can shut him down, it's going to be lights out. So I expect Germany to get a result there, maybe like a 2-0, and just really start to roll into the next round. So that's Mexico coming out in first, Germany second, Sweden third, and South Korea fourth. Finally, we have Switzerland versus Costa Rica and Serbia versus Brazil. I really like this Swiss team. I think that the victory they got against the Serbian team and the draw that they earned against Brazil set them up fantastically for this final match. Haven't been overly impressed with Costa Rica. I think that they've defended fairly well, but I'll give the slight edge here to Switzerland. Maybe this is like a 2-1 Swiss victory. Finally, Serbia versus Brazil. It's unfortunate that Serbia couldn't get a draw against Switzerland in their last match. I think that this may have resulted in more likely a draw, but the fact that they didn't get a result against Switzerland is going to force them to come out and play a little bit more. And don't have a ton of faith in Serbia's defense and the lack of pace in that defense against this Brazil attack. Yes, Serbia is very composed and organized defensively. They have a ton of experience, but I expect Brazil to come out and get a victory here. I'm going to say 1-0 to Brazil. I think it's going to be tight, but again, I just give the slight edge to Brazil. Now that I'm saying that, I think it might be a little bit more open because Serbia does have to come out. So maybe it's like a 3-1 to Brazil because Serbia has to come out. Maybe it's like a Brazil's up 1-0 and then Serbia's comes out and then maybe they get a second. Serbia pulls one back and then Brazil adds a third late. Maybe it's something like that. So that's what I'll say for tomorrow's matches. Thank you for joining. I mean, that's it for today. Thank you for anybody who has watched on YouTube or if you're listening to the podcast. Real quick plug before we get out of here. I also have a YouTube channel called The Soccer Tavern where I make videos about the history, culture, and philosophy of the beautiful game. So our most recent series was 32 videos about the 32 teams at the World Cup and their national team histories. So you can check out, why their crest is what it is and the meaning behind their nicknames, what is the population of each country and, how many World Cups have they won or how many not domestic, but their confederation titles have they won and all that. We got a ton of information in these videos. They're between 5 and 10 minutes long. So please go check them out. We have a ton of other videos on there as well. Premier League, club history videos, history of soccer, all kinds of stuff. So please go check that out on YouTube. We'll link to it in the video description and or podcast show notes. But again, or you can just search The Soccer Tavern on YouTube. And finally, if you like what we're doing here, please let me know. Love to hear from you. If you have suggestions on what to do differently, if you have, other thoughts. Again, just happy to hear them. We'd love to hear from you. So our Twitter's at BT Soccer Pod. You can tweet at us. Let us know your thoughts there. Christian and I are mainly tweeting during the matches. So, we're live tweeting all the World Cup matches. So can interact with us, ask our opinions. We'd love to have some interaction with you all. Or if email's your preferred method of communication, our email's bros.talking.soccer@gmail.com. Finally, please go check out our website, brostalkingsoccerpodcast.com. You can read about, me, Christian, Matt, and check out past episodes. And we got other information on there as well. Thanks so much for tuning in yet again. I appreciate it. And I will be back with you tomorrow and we will have a guest. I promise you on that one. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.